if you earn reps, we're going to play you.
Yep.
And we're not going to play you based on what you did last year. We're not going to play you based on anything else other than what you do right here and right now. And I think the players saw that we stood by that.
Mm-hmm.
We played a lot of different lineups on both sides. As you said, we got a lot of looks at people. There's guys that I think played really well that are going to have a chance to earn more and more reps as time goes on. And there's just so much competition within this team right now, which I'm really, really excited about. But the guys handled it well. Sometimes the lineup changes and all that you maybe sacrifice some rhythm at times. And I thought when I went back and watched the film, I thought a few of our mistakes, if we're not rotating as many guys, are probably honestly a little bit cleaner. And could we have went into that game as coaches, played a few less guys, maybe had a little bit more rhythm, and maybe eliminated a few of the mistakes because of that? Probably so. But you're also setting up for a long run here, and this is a long season. You're going to need a lot of these guys, and to be able to keep this competition going right now was important, and I'm glad we stuck to it.
Yeah, and it really feels like every position except for quarterback, you're playing multiple guys, and there's multiple guys that can go home and say, hey, I should be that starting dude. You say you never know what you have, but I'm sure there's a position group that sticks out of, hey, we learned a lot about this group against San José State. Which group is that across the team?
I would say linebacker. I'd say the defensive front seven. I would. I think the amount of pressure, specifically the amount of push, consistently from the defensive line. We had the quarterback moving around quite a bit, and it wasn't just one guy, right? Last year for us, it was more one guy. This was consistent. And it was across the board and a lot of people getting involved. There was a lot of exciting things to see there. We still made some mistakes there, but you see kind of what we've been building. You see like just the beginning. You see the sparks, right? And now we've got to get that thing full bore. And I feel really the same way from the linebackers. We made a couple of plays that were phenomenal that I don't know that we make at any point, in the season before. We made a couple of critical mistakes that – there's 2 or 3 plays from the linebacker position that directly attributed to 21 points. And we can't make those, but seeing the way we fly around, seeing the way these guys approach it, seeing the competition in the room, I think they're going to get corrected quick, and I think these guys are going to get better fast.
It says something when you're saying mistakes that you're smiling ear to ear. That must be a good sign.
You're listening to the head coach, Lincoln Riley, on Trojans Live. One thing we didn't talk about, none of us talked about last week, but I'm sure you've thought about the rule change, that the clock's no longer stopping on a first down. I noticed it in the fact that the first quarter was over in about 5 minutes. There were some other issues throughout the game that sort of made the overall game time fairly normal. Have you thought about it? Did you notice it in terms of the flow of the game and the rhythm of it all?
Yeah, the review at the end was longer than the first quarter. I'll go ahead and say it.
Better you than me.
Yeah. You felt it a little bit. I didn't feel like it was drastic. I could feel throughout the game that there was probably going to be, 1 to maybe 2 possessions less offensively. And then obviously the kick return kind of flipped that around a little bit. But yeah, you could definitely feel it a little bit. I remember, and I expected it. It's been good having, Coach Kingsbury in there with us because they've been used to playing with the running clock on first downs for a long time. And so we've talked a lot about that and what it'll feel like. And I felt like our guys and our staff were prepared for it.
Coach, a lot of young guys got some action, especially some freshmen. You think about Alani Noah and obviously Zachariah Branch got in there and make some spectacular plays. How do those young freshmen do? Because that's always, from going from high school to jumping into starting a college football game, it's a dramatic jump. How did those young guys fare?
Yeah, Zachariah obviously, made several big plays and I thought played pretty consistent for his first game as a freshman. I was proud of the way he played. I thought the 2 other guys that started, Tackett Curtis and Alani, they both made some plays that made you understand why you started them, and then they both made some plays where they looked like freshmen and made a few mistakes. And those 2 guys, though, they're going to learn from it fast and grow, and there's a ton to be excited about with those guys. I thought I thought some young guys came in there and did some nice things. Zion did some nice things. Christian Pierce had some really good plays on special teams and continues to push, I think, to be a factor for us defensively. Elijah Hughes, right, showed up on the defensive front.
Yeah.
Had a big TFL, got held or would have had a second one, I think, on his very first play in there. So he was one of those guys that we're watching on Sunday that we were pretty excited about. Quentin Joyner obviously ran the ball well. Deuce made some really nice plays. We didn't quite find Lemon a few times, Mekhi Lemon, but he was there. There were some young guys that made some noise and did some nice things in their first action.
Yeah, you mentioned all those guys. The past 2 years here at the receiver room, we've had a true number one receiver. When Drake London 2 years ago, and Jordan Addison last year. This year, I mean, we'll see how things unfold. But for you, how does that change when maybe you have a number one guy, we got to feed him the rock, versus a list of 9 to 10 dudes where you probably feel comfortable giving them all the rock on any given play?
Yeah, I mean, you'd rather it be this way where you have more options because again, you go throughout the year. We saw it last year with our receiving core, right? You're gonna have some guys get injured. You're gonna have different matchups, and when you've got matchups all over the field that you feel like have a chance to be advantages for you, I think it's a great thing. And yeah, well, like you said, we'll see how it plays out. Somebody may really separate and go to the top of that, or it may even out. And honestly, we just want the production. We don't really care a whole lot who it comes from.
Trojans are back at it on Saturday afternoon. Week 1, game 2 for the Trojans. Week 1 across college football, USC versus Nevada. 3:30 kick. We'll go on at 1:30 with the Trojan Tailgate Show. Coach will break that down with us in the next segment. Monster Energy, the official energy drink of USC. Unleash the Beast. And Trojans Live is sponsored by Pechanga Resort Casino, proud partner of USC football. More Lincoln Riley, more Trojans Live coming up next. And did you know the Ralph's app gives you easy access to weekly sales and personalized coupons, and you can earn fuel points too? Check out the app today and save while you cheer us on to another great season. Ralph's, proud partner of USC Athletics. Jordan Moore, Sean Cody, Max Brown, and the head coach Lincoln Riley here on Trojans Live. You always want to see that jump from game one to game two. Any particular areas where you're looking to see the biggest jump of improvement?
Yeah, I would say honestly, a lot of I would say two areas. I think certainly your younger / newer players to play a cleaner game, and then I would say the excitement that I kind of referenced in the first segment, based upon all right, you turn on the film, you see potential, you see good players running around, like you see capability. We got to start, and every team does, but we've got to start transitioning from that to units that look like a well-oiled machine, right? That are completely in sync. That you don't sit there and notice all the guys. You notice how well they all play, but more importantly, how well they play together. And that's been the emphasis point for coaches and players here in the beginning of the week, and will be throughout the week. Is we've got to be more cohesive. We've got to play in sync. We've got to use each other a little bit more. And there's a lot of examples on all three sides where guys are doing some really good things, but it's just a tick off from not being in sync. And that's any great unit that you think about on any side of the ball, like to me, they have that, right? They know exactly where each other are at. Guys feed off of one another. Guys play off of one another. And we've got to build that and become a little bit more cohesive.
Coach, defensively, I'm watching the film this morning, and you see the amount of points. You're like, maybe you don't want San Jose to score that many points in the game. But to me, it's 4, 5, 6 plays where you're watching, and you're just like, if they clean that up, it's a much different ball game. So I know some fans are probably freaking out, but I'm watching the film thinking, whoa. So as a coach, how do you install that in the players moving for this week? Is it like more ME stuff, or is it physicality stuff? What are the issues that those 4 or 5 plays you away from having a better defensive performance?
Yeah, we like the physicality. You always want more of that, right? I don't know that you ever get there in terms of that, but I think our mistakes weren't physical. Our mistakes were a couple of times lack of communication. And a couple times missed assignments. Yep. And we honestly played for the motions and shifts and all the things that they did. Our guys played a pretty clean game. It's like the 3 or 4 big mistakes that we had, they did a good job of finding it. Like the first 3rd and 22, it's like we come out of a gap. And Mason Cobb is right there. He's either he's gonna sack the quarterback, and that gap should not even be remotely open. And now all of a sudden it's, well, coach, shoot, that was a great call. Now you knocked him out of field goal range and pushed him all the way back. And that's so yeah, those are that's exactly right. You can go back and watch the film and see the potential. You see that honestly, a lot of it was us getting after them pretty good. Yep. But yeah, you're right. You got to correct those, and that's football. That's football against good teams. That's football against good quarterbacks that have darn near 50 starts. That's what's going to happen. And so we got to clean it up. We got to own it. We'll own the bad, but we're going to own the good too. And there's a lot of good, and it's going to get better.
When you talk about playing as a unit, no position group is that more important than an offensive line. Obviously, I think you played 5 different rotations before getting into that final group, which I've never seen that. How do you approach that in the weeks to come? Are you drawing a line in the sand, like we have to have a clean 5 at this point, let it play out naturally? Is it going to get condensed week to week? What's the overall approach there?
That's going to depend on the guys in the room. It's competition. We're hopeful at some point that some guys will separate themselves, but they got to do it too. We're not just gonna hand it to somebody just because. You got to earn the right to be a starter and to be in that group, just like you do any other group. And we've got some talented guys. We've got some guys I think that are close to doing it, but they need to push past the edge. And it's like we have a handful of guys that have their strengths are really good, but who's going to really improve on their weaknesses? Who's going to go take, maybe a question mark that you have in your head about, all right, can he do this or can he do that, and go answer that and go take this thing over. And so we've delivered that message loud and clear. We got to see a lot of guys. We expect a lot of improvement here this week. And then I think as that happens and this competition goes, I think it'll naturally start to settle in.
it was fun seeing so many different guys play, and one guy who stood out literally and seeing him for the first time was Deuce Robinson. He is huge. I mean, he's just huge. You stand down at field level, the basketball guys were down there promoting, and that's who he looked like. He looked like he was ready to play power forward at the Galen Center. He's obviously can play baseball too, which is wild, huge for that sport. But how do you view him? How do you view him as a piece? I mean, I know he's listed as a wide receiver. Came in as sort of a hybrid kind of player. He's so unique. How do you view him as an offensive play caller?
Yeah, he's a fun skill set. I mean, there's a reason why we recruited him for basically 4 years. He's a special kid. He's got a great skill set. I think we'll start to scratch the surface here on what all he can do. I believe with all freshmen, you've got to carve out an initial role for them, let them get settled into whatever your system is, and then I think as time goes on, the ability to move them around or find different ways to use them, I think that'll grow, and so that's what we've tried to do with Deuce. But yeah, I was excited to see him go in there and play well, made some big catches, and you're right. I mean, you see it on the field. It just the matchup out there is so unique. You just don't see that very often with a guy that big, and you guys got to watch it around here with Drake a few years and how dominant he was. And, these guys, there's probably some similarities. Deuce is maybe a little bit bigger than Drake, but obviously Drake was a phenomenal player. But, yeah, we're excited about the matchup. And I think as he learns and progresses and proves himself more, he'll have an opportunity to have more and more roles as we go on.
Coach, Nevada coming in to Coliseum this weekend. How do you expect this game to go? Is it more of the same? We'll see some rotation. We'll see some guys in there. Or are you going to start tightening it up a little bit and see, hey, these are maybe some of the guys we're going to be rolling with this year?
Yeah, I think it'll be slightly less in terms of maybe planned rotations. We kind of knew, even going into the beginning of last week, that's what we wanted to do. Now, some of it will be determined by how these guys respond from the week of practice. You're now going to have a full game film, a whole nother week after that to see, all right, who's taking in these lessons, right? Who's making the improvements? Who's really doing something about it? And so it's certainly going to start to trend more towards, prove it. And there's not going to be just we're not going to do rotations just because. If there's a reason to do it, we will. But these guys need to start proving, again, who's going to make these big jumps and so that we know who we can count on.
I'm sure when you see Zachariah Branch make the plays that he made, the offensive play caller creative juices start rolling, and I'm sure that changes week to week. But for you, is there a concept or a pass play that always makes the call sheet? That's your favorite, your go-to, the one you always got to have in there?
That's a good question. There's a couple that most weeks we try to have in there, and even I could think of a couple that even sometimes, like, we get to the end of the week and it's not there and it just doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? It's like, nah, we got to have that security blanket back in there. So, yeah, we've got a few. But, the skill sets change so much throughout the years that each group kind of finds its own thing, and what may be something you love one year just because this person's different, or maybe people playing you a little different, that it doesn't necessarily always carry over. So we had a few things like that last year that kind of started as one-offers that became major concepts for us that we used over and over. And my gut is with this group, the skill sets being a little bit different than what we had last year, that some of that will evolve, which is always fun.
All right, game 2 coming up Saturday. Officially, we are celebrating the Coliseum's 100th birthday as well. So get to the Coliseum, USC versus Nevada, a 3:30 kick, and we will go on with the Trojan Tailgate Show presented by Yeti at 1:30. Coming up next on this show is Austin Jones. Thanks to the coach. Back with more Trojans Live next.